Well, good morning. I want to welcome you to the 2018 State of the Small Business. My name is Bruce Panter. I'm the Business Banking Manager at Wells Fargo and proud sponsor of this event. Stephnie has a pretty extensive background. Stephnie Copland was appointed to the Governor's Cabinet January of 2017. We do have a new election coming up. I'm sure she'll survive and continue in that role here moving forward, right, Stephnie? Yes, okay. She oversees a host of divisions, initiatives, and programs that support business development throughout the state of Colorado. Now, she's got a pretty extensive resume. Before this appointment, she was most recently served as president of Zayo Corp. Group, a communications infrastructure firm. She was, previous to that, she was chief operating officer of a company called Wild Blue, which was a $500 million rural broadband business responsible for operations. In the 90s, she had, it sounds like a most excellent adventure, going to St. Petersburg, Russia, to take a management position with cable and wireless. Returned to the U.S. in 94, started part of a team that started MFS International. She joined the early Level 3 communications team in 1997, and in 2001, Quest Communications recruited her to run pricing for their company. Ms. Copland is a director of Colorado Broadband Deployment Board and Colorado Workforce Development Council, a Blackstone entrepreneur. She serves as a mentor to support women across the communications industry. So welcome, Stephnie. Glad you're here.
Thanks for being here today. It's really nice to be in places now that I've been around the state for a little bit and recognize faces, see some friendly faces in the crowd. So I really don't have anything more to say than what Adka just said. That's unbelievable, all the support that exists specifically here locally that leverages both state and federal resources to bring supporting services to this community. Bruce said something earlier that I wanted to add on to. One of the reasons I think we excel as a state, as a community, and as a business sector is because of the work we do here to collaborate. So it's funny, when I'm in New York or I'm in Illinois or in California, you don't find people acting in a way that's helpful to each other that much. You find people really interested in their own agenda and kind of progressing, which we all are as well. But it's interesting when you're asking people here to help, everyone raises their hands and they help. They kind of in the philosophy that all tides rise if we help each other. So I really think that's a unique aspect to Colorado's culture and specifically unique in communities like Colorado Springs. So I'm really happy to be here. So for a couple things, and I also am going to move across the stage a little bit. I'm sorry to get in the way here. About 98% of Colorado businesses are small businesses, so less than 50 people. That's a huge percent of 1 million employees in small businesses. It is the single biggest growth driver for the state, and it is the most important business segment that we have. Small businesses make up majority of innovation, they make up the majority of diversity, they make up the majority of progress and job creation. Colorado is America's best place to do business, as cited by a number of publications. Denver was ranked the second best place to start a career. I think that has a lot to do with maybe some of the illegal substances we've legalized. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It has a lot to do with the collaboration and the fact that this is such an incredible place to be. And we are the second best state for entrepreneurship, which is interesting because we still have a number of gaps in this area that we are working hard to try to fill. And some of that will come with time, and some of that will come with really, really powerful intention. So there are trends. Crowdfunding is increasingly playing a role in actually capitalization of small businesses. So if you look at the amount of venture capital, and including angel and seed capital, not including traditional loans, you look at that, angel and seed capital are playing a larger and larger role in small business life cycle. So instead of raising a Series A at $500,000 or $1 million raise, or somewhere in that life cycle, it's typically raised much later in your life cycle. So you're more and more dependent if you're looking for equity investment to, again, it's not essentially crowdsourcing, but hyperlocal angel investors. So that's an important trait that we want to make sure we understand, because businesses are increasingly dependent on that longer stage of angel and seed funding. Advanced industries are growing, so we're seeing more and more entrants in the advanced industries growing in small business, which is fantastic. Again, that's where innovation comes from. We'll talk a little bit about those programs. The cyber, of course, is unbelievably important. What the work that the SBDC is doing here, along with the work the National Cybersecurity Center is trying to build, as well as the programmatic support UCCS in their faculty and in their education, it's going to play an increasingly supportive role. And frankly speaking, this emerging community of blockchain developers that we're seeing both in the Denver and Colorado Springs area, we believe can be a powerful leadership role in addressing cyber, although it's not necessarily the use case. Blockchain is not necessarily a security use case. It is a byproduct of many of the blockchain use cases are that they're immutable. The technology is non-hackable, theoretically. So the last thing I would say on this one, social media is becoming an increasingly part of how you get to market, and that changes every single day. Funny story, I was in New York this weekend with my daughter looking at colleges, and we went to go see Mean Girls. And of course, because that's what you do, and I was watching, Mean Girls has all of these different social posts that go on. I didn't understand half of the hashtags, and I didn't understand what AF meant. I don't know if any of you do. But my point is that I was talking to another colleague this morning about it, and I'm like, I didn't know what that meant. She's like, oh, we've already morphed that, meaning that just social media terminology, the way you get to market, the way you change is changing every single day, every minute. If you understand it, if I understand it, it's past tense, for sure. But the importance is that having that consulting network and the mentors that keep your business fresh or help you continue to innovate in that platform is important, because it's how you get to market in many ways. And finally, here, on-demand services, so customer service, different ways of supporting end users online is lowering the barrier to entry for small businesses, and small businesses are continuing to take advantage of being small businesses that support on-demand services in the new economy. So our strengths, we have an unbelievably skilled and educated workforce. We have really strong networks, as evidenced by people in this room. And I really loved the nod to the creative industries. We're not thinking about small business in any one vertical. The creative industries play an important role. The technology industry play an important role, and those are symbiotic industries, and we collaborate together to support all, which is fantastic. And we have an unbelievably strong economy. Our unemployment rate hovering between 2.5% and 3%, depending on the market that we're in, as well as continuing migration into the state is creating more and more and more growth. And with it, more and more challenges that I think we are up to the challenge to face. So what's a small business? What are the obstacles for small business, and what are some of the headwinds? So cash flow, enough runway to get you to self-sustaining and to continue to grow your business. Always finding talent with 2.5% to 3% unemployment rate. I'm sure finding talent is not exactly the easiest thing to do, especially or particularly skilled talent that you need for one or two applications. Maintaining and increasing your client base, so access to markets, exactly what we talked about earlier this morning is really, really important. Access to markets is something that we can't ignore. You can have an unbelievably bright and intelligent business plan, but if you don't have a customer, it's a tree falls in the forest. And the rapid change, including embracing technology. So it's changing all the time. This is no longer a kind of set it and let it go environment. So what the things that we're doing to help small businesses, and there are many gaps that we continue to try to fill, but one is with the SBDC as a lead partner in the state, we believe that the kind of support they provide with regard to education, access to capital, access to markets, and mentoring and advisory support is one of the most key assets. From access to market with PTAC's help, as well as some of the things that we do with the import and export grants that we provide, help small businesses gain access to those markets. again, got to have your top line growing. It has to happen. We also look at kind of transition throughout the stages. So we have a lot of programs that are focused also on the scale-up phase of businesses. I think that this is particularly an area we have to do better, and we have to see more businesses actually kind of inflecting and scaling up, those that want to. But we have different grant programs that help with this, as well as support networks that we've helped to set up. And then the AI grants are something that are probably well known to most of you. We've done about $5 million of grants this year. 20 companies so far have been granted, and the AI grants really provide the proof of concept transition into commercialization, which is an important step in the equation to keep fueling the system. So we had we had 78,000 new businesses, what I consider small entry businesses in 2012. That's not new business filings. We have about 2,000 a year. And we continue to see this unbelievable growth in both new business filing and across the sectors. From 2000 to 2012, we saw about a 58% increase in new business starts in the state. But then in that same time frame, we saw a slowdown of medium and large businesses. From 2000, on the next slide, I'll show you how the trends have evolved since then. But our business registrations, while they've continued to surge, we're also seeing, again, sorry to see these are just numbers, we've also seen a continued increase across large businesses too, meaning that we're seeing more businesses graduate from small to medium and medium to large, which is a really, really good indicator of our ability to scale up. This is a very recent phenomena. So from 2000 to 2012, we weren't seeing that happening. Now we're seeing new business starts and new business formation in the smaller side actually translating into a pipeline for medium and large businesses, which again, continue to fortify the economy, and those become sustaining business and jobs. Does that make sense? This chart, we were working on it and I wanted it to be plotted so it'd be more obvious, but this shows about an 8 to 10% growth across all businesses almost equally. So there's no cohort that's growing in one bigger than the other, which shows a really natural continuum for businesses across the state. So finally, looking ahead, the impact of new state leadership. I was hoping that you guys could tell me what would happen there, but so we are transitioning as a team at the end of this year with the new gubernatorial election, and we've put a lot of programs in place that have an absolute necessity for endurance, including the SBDC programs, which are not subject to administrative changes, which we think are really, really important. So what we've been doing strategically over the past couple of years is those key initiatives that we believe provide the most support, we're trying to ensure that they are administratively untouched so that they can continue to have the positive impact that they've had. We believe that business growth is a real bipartisan supported effort, and we believe that the programs that we've put in place or we've supported are both impactful as well as prudent. In some cases, many would say too prudent, but we're continuing to expand where we think we're seeing great returns. So the new governor will appoint his cabinet sometime in probably the late part of this year or early part of next year, and there are no rules around this. So again, what we are really preserving, what we're really trying to desperately preserve is that things that are very much working, that they are continuing throughout and such that they cannot be necessarily touched by a new administration coming in if they were so inclined, which I don't believe is the case. So with that, I will, I told you it's gonna be really fast. I talk even faster than you do. My dad used to just hang up on me. Just hang up. I have a couple minutes if there are any questions. I don't know if that's appropriate or happy to do that. There's something in the deck something that wasn't in the deck that I wanted to touch on briefly that may trigger some questions as well. We are in the middle. As you know, Colorado, as part of the national program around federal, the new tax bill that was passed last December, we designated 125 opportunity zones in the state, which are zones that have a special tax advantage for private investment coming in around capital gains. So these 125 distressed census tracts, there were several in Colorado Springs that were designated 7, thank you. I couldn't remember whether there's 7 or 10. I think that was the number that in Colorado Springs, in those zones, are essentially places where if you make an investment and you use a capital gains rollover into an opportunity fund, you get some pretty significant tax incentives for doing that. That can be infrastructure investment or investment in business, so equity investment. As kind of not surprisingly, this incentive was established and there's no programmatic way of activating this right now. So we'll be, as a state, convening towards the end of June to try and bring together some real programmatic support of leveraging and catalyzing investment into these zones, and including helping regions and towns build prospectuses that will attract investor capital. So Chris is going to be attending, hopefully, a session at the end of June with us and trying to pull this together. And it's one of the biggest things that I want to see happen is that this does not become an abused tax incentive, that it really is catalytic for those geographies that would otherwise somewhat languish without investment, and we want to use this as a catalyst to really spur more and more economic development. So with that, I will now shut up. Thank you. So the question was, are OEDIT services available to the public, or do we channel through the SBDC? It depends on the program. Some programs are offered directly. For example, our AI grant program is a direct offering into the public. Some programs we use supporting mechanisms like the SBDC to facilitate. So it really depends on that. If you're doing something very granular like the SBDC is doing, it's much more impactful to do that at the local level and to facilitate and enable programs like the SBDC running here. Yeah, that would be a question I should know the answer to, but I don't. So the question was, how many of the 20 companies are here in Colorado Springs? I don't actually know the answer to that, but I will find out. I believe that there are a subset that were in Colorado Springs, but it's pretty evenly distributed across the state. But I believe you guys have an outnumbered participation in that, given your focus on cyber here. But I'll get that answer. So two things. ChooseColorado.com/opportunity zones will tell you all the background. The question was, how do we get more information on opportunity zones? Remember that opportunity zones are geographic designations. OZ instead of opportunity zones. So ChooseColorado.com/OZ. Or if you look up, just Google Opportunity Zones Colorado, it will come up as well. We put together a tremendous amount of information there. There have been no rules written yet by the Treasury on how to establish an opportunity fund. We're still waiting on those rules, and we're trying to guide them. But in the meantime, activating and catalyzing investment is what we're working on. How do we programmatically provide for that support and attract private investment? Because this is not a grant pool. This is convincing $6 trillion of capital gains that are sitting on private investors' balance sheets to invest in these areas. We've designated our opportunity zones tracks, or census tracks. The U.S. Treasury has to write rules around how to set up an opportunity fund. Does that make sense? Okay.